It's a really great sort of writing relationship I've got with Richard and Anil. It works in many different ways. I mean, we will sit in a room for days sometimes and work out sort of the plots and the storylines, really, you know, how we want to, how we want the episode to go, you know, and sometimes that's the hardest part because, you know, you're thinking of the stakes. Stakes are really important in a sitcom because, you know, people have got to be interested and people have got to care about what Mr. Khan is doing, and it's got to be true to the character and how it affects Mrs. Khan as well and the daughters and Amjad. It's all got to be true to everybody's character. So that sometimes is the hardest part, and we can tear our hair out doing that. I haven't got much hair, neither has Anil, but you know, Richard tears his hair out. So we will sit in a room a lot of times on Skype, and I've spent hours on Skype with them working that out. And then once we've worked that out, then we get to writing the first draft. I wouldn't say the characters are based on specific people I know, but they really are inspired by so many people. Inspired by, yes, my family members, yes, my own dad, but then, you know, you'd meet my dad and you go, he looks nothing like Mr. Khan. But there are just little subtleties, you know. I mean, my dad's very proud to be Pakistani, but also very proud to be British. My dad's always very immaculately dressed, so is Mr. Khan. But then there's lots of people, Asian men and women that I've met. I remember as a young kid going shopping with my mum on Ladypool Road, where we filmed a lot of Citizen Khan. And I would constantly watch other Asian people, and I was fascinated by adults. But then he's totally inspired by, and I'm not ashamed to say this, but by classic British comedy characters. I've been brought up by, you know, watching Fawlty Towers and Basil Fawlty and Del Boy and Rigsby, and these are all from Rising Damp, and these are all characters that, you know, always thought they were bigger than they were, and they have a certain sadness. The biggest challenge I found is giving it away. Is learning the real ability to be able to go, you know what, although you've created this, it means nothing until set designers, cameramen, sound people, other co-writers, producers, makeup people, costume designers, you know, the production staff, everyone has been able to get their hands on it and do their magic as well. And I think it's really hard initially when you're sat with writers and they're going, Adil, let me tell you, I'll tell you what Mr. Khan does. And I'm going, hang on a minute, I know what Mr. Khan does, this is my thing. But you have to listen to them, and they're not always going to be right, and you're not always going to agree, but you have to listen. Sitcom is a traditional format, you know. Studio sitcom is one of the, you know, it's a really old classical comedy format. So clearly it's going to be traditional in that sense. But I would say it's very modern and progressive in the fact that it's a Pakistani Muslim family which we've not had before. It's in urban Birmingham, which we've not had before. I mean, you've got characters like Alia, who wears a hijab, and girls weren't wearing hijabs in the 70s and 80s. It's a recent phenomenon, really. And also, you know, to have Dave, a white Muslim, running the local mosque. All those, to me, sound quite modern. But Mr. Khan, our main character, is traditional. He's stuck in a time warp. You know, that's the joke. I mean, he's still stuck in the 70s and 80s, you know, and we've exaggerated that relationship that I have with my parents, that pretty much every British Asian I know fights a traditional, and they're not Asians, just everybody. We fight traditions with the first generation, but we've exaggerated that for the purpose of comedy. I don't think that you can begin to write anything if you're going to start thinking that you're representing a community, because it's absolutely impossible. I mean, it's, you know, I'm technically British Asian, you know, but my views are very different to my father's views, who's British Asian, you know, and then we live in the same house, you know, we are part of the same family. So you cannot for 1 minute think that you're going to represent the entire community. You can't. As a writer, it has to come from your character. Not really. I'm not surprised by the reaction because, you know, I'm the same. I've worked in Asian media for 10 years. As soon as there's an Asian TV show, I like, look, it's us on the telly. We react like that, whether it's a documentary on Pakistan's Karachi cops or whether there's a gay Muslim in EastEnders, or even an Asian guy in a shampoo advert. It'll soon go viral, you know, things will spread. If people see Pakistanis on the TV in a fictional way, it's a very rare thing. We're probably not used to it, you know. So I think it's bound to make people react in different types of ways, and all comedy gets different reactions. But we're absolutely being inundated by people that love it, and you know, and debate about any piece of writing is probably no bad thing. Oh, it's really important for me, really, because actually, sort of the keen-eyed people will know that Mr. Khan initially, when he was on Bellamy's People, was from Leicester, and we kind of changed that. I mean, brought him to Birmingham. I knew I was going to be writing more about him, only because I just know more about Sparkhill, and I felt that I feel a little bit part of Sparkhill. Not that I've lived there, but we spent all our weekends there. Doing our shopping when we were kids with my mum, going to the halal butchers, etc. You know, it's a really important part of Birmingham, and Birmingham, I think, is often a city that gets overlooked. And I think it's very much a microcosm of what's happening in Birmingham. And I think if you live in the deep south of Cornwall or up north in Sunderland, you can probably forget the multiculturalism that we've got in this country. My experience of Sparkhill, as much as it's urban and sometimes it's poor and people are really struggling at times, that, you know, a real fondness, and I think there's a real, you know, strong community there. So it was a great opportunity to write a sitcom based there, I think. A second series of Citizen Khan, please, is desperately what we'd really like to do. I mean, I think that would be just great if that happens, because, you know, I think we can really get stuck into the character more. We can look at developing some of the other characters, which I think would be fantastic. On a personal note, I'd like to be challenged by doing perhaps more physical stuff with Khan. I'm not saying you know, necessarily he's going to fall over, because I think Miranda's got the monopoly on that, and she does that very well, and I don't think anybody can do it any better than her. But I don't know, it'll be quite interesting to see him doing more ludicrous stuff, perhaps. And one of my particular favourite characters has got to be Arlia, I think. And I think, you know, it'll just be exciting to explore her a little bit more as well. So lots of little ideas, but I think pretty much more of the same, a warm-hearted family sitcom, more to come. My favourite line is probably his line about News at 10, or when, I think it was episode 1, where he says, you know, did anybody watch News at 10 last night? 7 times they mentioned Pakistan, huh? Twice, in a good way. I just think that's great. I think that's lovely, because it's just, he's just taking the sort of that humour and or that sort of people probably dare not say, and him embracing it and saying it in such a lovely way as a point of distraction, I think is just great. Yeah. Normally write in my dining room, on my dining table, on my MacBook, with a bowl of almonds and a cup of tea, and Radio 5 Live or Radio 4 on very quietly in the kitchen. Watch a lot of comedy that you like, you know, and it sounds really obvious, but I think a lot of people don't give a lot of time to comedy, and don't be afraid to watch the repeats of stuff, and perhaps watch stuff that you don't think you're going to like, and, you know, just learn from that. And then I think also is forge relationships with people, you know, and get to know people, and whether it's people in the business, and, you know, spend time with them socially as well as professionally, and I think you can pick up a lot from that, really. And finally, as obvious as this is, but trust your instincts. I think if you've got an idea and you feel there's something and your heart is telling you that's what you want to do, then I think you have to give it a go. You have to sit down and write that 30-minute script. You have to send it into the writer's room, or you have to send it into channels, because you just never know. And there's no shame in someone coming back and saying it's not quite right. My favourite TV sitcom, probably Fawlty Towers, like everyone else. And I think you should always ask the question, what's your second favourite sitcom? Because clearly everyone's has to be Fawlty Towers. But I would say I like Cheers. I think it's probably in many ways the ultimate sitcom. It's just brilliant. I mean, to set a sitcom all in one setting like that must be very hard and difficult. So quality writing, quality characters, so that's great. But I also like Seinfeld, and Curb Your Enthusiasm, I think is great. And then Vicar Dibley, I just want to cuddle everybody in that. I think it's the most warm, lovely, eatable comedy ever made.